I'm Jack Bradley in for Steve Lance tonight. President Trump heads to Europe as he applauds a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, which is appearing to both to hold despite faltering at first. Now, a GOP lawmaker in this has nominated Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has more.
Despite treating war attacks in the early hours, a ceasefire now appears to hold as both Israel and Iran announced they will stick to the truce as long as the other side does as well. It comes after President Trump on Tuesday morning lashed out at both of them for allegedly violating the ceasefire at first.
Basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Israel has never had a greater friend in the White House than President Trump, and I thank him very much for our joint efforts.
As both sides then proceed to maintain the ceasefire and pause fighting, Trump hails the development and takes credit, posting on Truth Social, "It was my great honor to destroy all nuclear facilities, capability, and then stop the war." On his way to the NATO summit in Netherlands, Trump reiterates this about Iran.
They're not going to have enrichment and they're not going to have a nuclear weapon.
On Sunday, Trump ordered U.S. strikes on Iran's critical nuclear sites. Trump officials on Tuesday stressed that the sites were completely obliterated, contrary to reports suggesting otherwise. And while Trump days ago floated the idea of potential regime change in Iran, he now makes clear that that's not what he wants.
I'd like to see everything calm down as quickly as possible. Regime change takes chaos.
And GOP House lawmaker Buddy Carter on Tuesday nominated the president for Nobel Peace Prize over the ceasefire deal. And as things seem to settle down for now, the NATO Secretary General praised Trump in a text message shared by Trump, saying Trump's move was, quote, something no one else dared to do. The NATO boss adds that NATO nations have now agreed to spend 5% of their GDP on defense, all that because of Trump.
But do you really think if Donald Trump would not have been president, that tomorrow he would get to the 5%? Are you really thinking that? I'm not.
And Trump says he's likely meeting with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky on the sidelines of the NATO summit. It comes as Trump, after dealing with the Middle East, now again attempts to get Russia and Ukraine to make peace as well. Reporting by Iris Tao, NTD News.
Israel and Iran agreed to a ceasefire last night, but both sides reportedly launched strikes at each other after it went into effect. And after speaking with President Trump, Israel says that it's holding off on additional strikes on Iran. NTD's Jason Perry has the update.
After 12 days of deadly fighting between Israel and Iran, President Trump announced a ceasefire between the two countries on Monday night. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said it has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now. And on Tuesday, the Israel Defense Forces spokesperson said they struck targets in Iran before the ceasefire went into effect.
Israeli Air Force fighter jets struck dozens of military targets in Tehran throughout the night, deploying more than 100 munitions.
Also, before the ceasefire went into effect, Iran reportedly launched about 20 missiles at different locations in Israel. Most were intercepted, but one Iranian missile hit this residential building in Beersheba, killing at least 4 people, according to Israeli authorities. Israeli President Isaac Herzog visited the site and said the missile that hit weighed close to 900 pounds.
Landed here specifically to kill women, children, old age, and people's ordinary lives. Demolished kindergarten and school, demolished apartments, and unfortunately had a heavy toll of 4 innocent civilians.
And then after the ceasefire went into effect, sirens sounded again across Israel. Israel's prime minister's office said that Iran launched 3 missiles at Israel during the ceasefire. No injuries were reported, and the remains of an Israeli interceptor landed near an animal shed in northern Israel. Afterward, Iranian state-run media denied that Iran had fired missiles at Israel after the ceasefire had begun. In retaliation, Israel said they destroyed a radar installation near Tehran. And afterward, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke with President Trump. And since then, Israel has held off on additional attacks in Iran as of Tuesday afternoon. Netanyahu thanked the U.S. for their help and said this afterward.
Dear citizens of Israel, during the 12 days of the Operation Rising Lion, we achieved a historic victory, and this victory will stand for generations. We removed from upon us two immediate existential threats, the threat of annihilation by nuclear bombs and the threat of annihilation by 20,000 ballistic missiles.
In a post on X, Iran's foreign minister said, quote, Israel launched war on Iran, not the other way around. Jason Perry, NTD News.
A ceasefire deal between Israel and Iran now in effect. How are everyday Americans viewing this development and the Trump administration's efforts in negotiating a peace deal? NTD's Sam Wong was out on the National Mall in D.C. to hear from the people.
What do you think is the significance of this latest ceasefire between Israel and Iran?
Hopefully to stop a World War III. That's what I'm hoping, right? I don't think anybody wants to see that happen.
I'm just hoping that it's not something that we're rearming about.
It should have probably already been in effect a long time ago. I think any time is better. The best time is now.
I hope it works. I hope that we can get out of this without any more American, Israeli, or Iranian bloodshed.
Hopefully it's permanent. I don't really trust Iran. They're constantly fighting, and if it's not with us, it's Israel, it's someone.
Unless there's some lasting deal that both sides feel that they're not quite happy with, but they both feel that they're getting something out of, then it's not going to be lasting, and we'll be talking about it in 5 years' time, 10 years' time.
What are your thoughts on President Trump's efforts to drive a ceasefire between the two countries?
I mean, I think it's good. That's what we need. And, yeah, I think he's going about it the right way.
I think it's noble. You should be trying to create peace. You need to have both sides feeling like they're not completely losing. Otherwise, you're just kicking the can down the road.
Hitting somebody on the head with a stick and saying that if you don't retaliate is not a very good plan. It can all be over now as long as no one fights back.
I think he should have probably waited to get the backing before he just went out there and just did whatever he wanted to do, for sure. Hopefully they can come to some good agreements and terms, because, yeah, this is a pretty strenuous time for everybody, I think.
I think that he's not only trying to get peace in that area of the world, he's trying to do it all over the world.
He's just jump right in and do it, and I think that's why he was elected.
124 Democrats joined Republicans to table articles of impeachment against President Trump after Congressman Al Green and a minority of Democrats called the president's strikes on Iran unconstitutional. Democratic leadership also voted against impeachment, but complained that a classified briefing on the strikes had not yet taken place.
I mean, hopefully they get it sooner rather than later. But members of Congress can ask for a classified briefing, and then those of us who really care about it have. So, like, if you want to get the intelligence, you get it.
I don't know why it got postponed. I would imagine some of us speculated that it's because they don't actually have any good evidence of that would have justified the attack. As members of Congress, you know, it's our authority to declare war, right? And acts of war should go through Congress. I've always felt that way. We've gotten ourselves into a lot of unnecessary, expensive wars because of that.
The only thing that could make Iran or Tehran happier would be an impeachment of Donald Trump. These people are siding with terrorists. They're siding with the Ayatollah. They're siding with the mullahs. They're siding with a deadly terrorist regime.
The House of Representatives examines how to lock in the cuts by the Department of Government Efficiency. Our Washington correspondent Luis Eduardo Martinez has more on this story.
I certainly wish that my Democrat colleagues felt the same as their former Democrat leaders felt. This subcommittee has highlighted where DOGE has staunched the flow of waste, fraud, and abuse. The DOGE website identifies $180 billion in savings achieved in just a matter of months.
Of those $180 billion in potential savings identified by the Department of Government Efficiency, the House of Representatives has already passed a rescissions package to claw back $9.3 billion in spending. That package has not yet received a vote in the Senate.
The American people are over it. DOGE has been used to wage a chaotic, destructive, and ideological war against the American people and the vital programs that they depend on.
All House Democrats voted against the rescissions package, and Democrats in the DOJ subcommittee used most of their time during Tuesday's hearing to criticize President Donald Trump's foreign policy towards the Middle East. Both the House and the Senate were expected to receive classified briefings from the Trump administration on the strikes against Iran over the weekend. But the recently announced ceasefire between Iran and Israel has pushed back the classified briefing to Thursday.
Peace in the Middle East has never been closer within our grasp. President Clinton said, quote, "I believe all the Western nations have an overriding interest in containing the threat posed by Iran," unquote. President Obama, he said, "I have stated that Iran will never be allowed to obtain a nuclear weapon," unquote. President Biden, quote, "We will not, let me say again, we will not allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon." But it was President Trump who did more than talk. He acted.
Speaker of the House Mike Johnson asked House members to keep their schedules flexible as they expect the Senate to vote on President Trump's big, beautiful bill before the end of the week. Congress could work over the weekend to meet its July 4th deadline. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Today, a bipartisan House commission held a hearing on trends in transnational repression. Lawmakers and witnesses say that this directly impacts people and entities on American soil. NTD's David Lamb reports.
Expert witnesses testified on Tuesday about repressive tactics from foreign countries reaching into the U.S.
The FBI has improved its intake system for reporting on cases and maintains a transnational repression information page. However, there is a need for enhanced coordination between federal and local law enforcement to identify, prevent, and respond to TNR.
The Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission heard about cases originating from Pakistan, India, Brazil, Hong Kong, and China, where activists and journalists have been targeted.
We will hear testimony today about how China punishes people in the United States for speech that their government doesn't like.
According to the Commission, transnational repression, or TNR, include tactics that can be direct through killings, abductions, enforced disappearances, and unlawful removals. It also includes indirect tactics like online harassment, digital surveillance, targeting of relatives, and abuse of consular services.
The Hong Kong police have summoned family members of wanted activists for interrogation about our activities. Our family members have been surveilled and threatened.
One witness said 48 governments, about a quarter of the world's countries, have used transnational tactics in the last decade.
Although the governments of Russia, Iran, Turkey, Egypt, Uzbekistan, Rwanda, and Cambodia aggressively pursue dissidents abroad, the Chinese government remains the most prolific perpetrator of transnational repression, undertaking the world's most sophisticated and comprehensive campaign.
So I also think it's very important that we maintain and increase federal funding for organizations that have been, documenting, investigating, disrupting and exposing transnational repression in the United States.
Other solutions that panelists suggested range from less law enforcement surveillance to considering other countries' human rights violations when making policies and agreements with them. David Lamb, NTD News.
As tensions with Iran continue, the U.S. arrests 11 Iranian nationals who were in the U.S. illegally. The Department of Homeland Security says one of them has admitted ties to the terrorist group Hezbollah. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has more.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, arrested 11 Iranian nationals illegally in the United States over the weekend. ICE also arrested a U.S. citizen who threatened to kill law enforcement while allegedly harboring an illegal immigrant from Iran. This reflects the administration's aim to keep known and suspected terrorists out of American communities. Homeland Security says that one of the individuals is a former member of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard and that he has admitted connections to the Iran-backed terrorist group Hezbollah. An immigration judge ordered his removal in June of 2022, but he remained in the U.S. illegally. A Homeland Security spokesperson reportedly says, "We have been saying we are getting the worst of the worst out. And we are. We don't wait until a military operation to execute. We proactively deliver on President Trump's mandate." Meanwhile, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem is in Panama today. It's her first stop of a Central America tour to address immigration and security. Noam is expected to observe a deportation flight and visit the Coast Guard. Following Panama, the secretary is set to visit Costa Rica, Guatemala, and Honduras. Arian Pastor, NTD News.